Yes, Karthik.
Okay. So we'll continue with Selenium today. We'll see about different weights in Selenium today. All right. So we all know why we need weight, right? Why we need a weight in Selenium. Let's try to understand the basics first. Can anyone say that?
If the object IDs are not loaded on the right time.
Yes, right. So every time we might not be sure when the particular object will be loaded in DOM, right? Um, Either the entire web page has to load completely, or with respect to any Ajax elements, the call to the backend or API call to the backend will go then and there depending upon what data you need at the runtime. It is going like that because nowadays there are many web applications that are having huge databases, huge sets of data that has to be displayed in the front end. Right. So everything cannot be loaded at a single shot because it will consume tons and tons of data. It will consume MBs and GBs of data, which your computer RAM might not hold or your DOM might not load for that matter. So nowadays, what architecture the industry is following is like you have tons and tons of data in the backend systems in your databases. So whenever you need that particular data, some XHR calls will go to the backend, and you will take fetch the data from the databases or from cache, and you display it to the user. So this kind of data is load on need, right? So in the Selenium also we have to handle this kind of waits. So we have to wait until certain data loads, right? So there are basically three kinds of wait, like we know, right? Implicit, and explicit, and third one is fluent wait. There are some common things between explicit and fluent. We'll come to that shortly. So implicit wait, as the name suggests, right? It will wait implicitly. Implicitly means without any conditions or without any expectations. It will wait that much amount of time for every element in the DOM. Right? So implicit elements or implicit conditions are useful when you want to generalize the waiting period for every element in the DOM. So we know for sure if you want to throw some exceptions, or even Selenium will throw some exception, right? No such element exception or element not found exception or stale element exception. It will throw only after reaching the particular time we have mentioned the implicit wait. So we don't have to do kind of each and every kind of element has to wait for different kind of time. There has to be some standard, right? There has to be some standard time where I have to in my application that I will wait, or SLA have defined in my application that I have to wait until this much time, so that once this time crosses, then SLA is breached or that particular expectation is not met, then probably I can say the element has not loaded. Right? So we have initialized a driver, right? Im- so declaring an implicit wait is kind of a straightforward. So you have this manage method and this timeouts method, and you have this method called implicitly wait, right? So you can specify how much time you wanted to wait for that particular web element. Let's say I want to wait for 30 seconds. 30 seconds is kind of a, what you can 30 or 60 seconds is kind of an industry standard. So generally people prefer 30 or 60 seconds actually, right? So how much time I'm going to wait, I can specify this time unit here. So I can specify whether I wanted to, what kind of unit is this, whether this is a day or hour or seconds or milliseconds, I can specify here. So I can say seconds, right? So now for each and every web element that is loaded here, then our then our particular script will wait implicitly for 30 seconds. Let's try to do this. Let's try to go to this page. You will not see anything explicitly happening here. Let's try to execute with the implicit wait itself once. So once the particular website is loaded, we'll say driver.quit. I'll try to run this. So that's it. We are not doing anything specific. Maybe we'll try to get some element here actually. Let's say I want to find this element. Or let's put contains text. Okay, let's try to get this. So now our script will implicitly wait for 30 seconds for this element to load. It will obviously load within that time frame. Maybe we'll try to reduce this time next in the next run. Try to run this. Maybe we'll reduce this to 3 seconds or something. Okay, I think it has loaded within 3 seconds. Maybe we'll try to make it 1. Okay, let's try to reduce this further. Let's try to break this. Let's stay microseconds. Okay, let's do something with this. Okay, I'm not able to see what is exactly happening there. So okay, maybe we'll come back to this. So the idea behind this implicit timeout is like you just have to implicitly wait. Maybe we'll put okay. We'll just try to put the thread dot sleep here. Okay, the particular element is loading as soon as the page loaded. I think it's not an XHR call. I think. Fine. Anyways, we'll move on. We'll find maybe I'll try with an example where the XHR call is going and this particular the script is waiting for the particular element or the particular data to load for that XHR call. Maybe we'll try with another different example maybe tomorrow or so. So we'll come to this explicit wait. So explicit is wait is something like name as the name suggests, right? It is explicitly waiting for some element to load actually. So when this kind of scenario is useful is like, I mean the same. Most of the web elements or web applications nowadays doesn't load data, right? So what is like? I mean the basic HTML structure and the CSS, everything is loaded from something called CDN. Only the data which are part of our web applications is fetched from the database. Actually, we are going to validate only those kind of data only there. And for example, you have this front end and you have this back end. So we saw some examples. Front end mainly consists of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So what generally happens is like this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are mostly constants. What I mean by constants is like um, they have certain structure, and those kind of things are not going to change over your web page or web application. So I have this particular web page here. It has some HTML structure, right? The HTML says you have to have this top nav bar here, and you have to have your main body here. So this HTML structure is predefined, and even the CSS what you are saying is kind of applied uh, for the particular iteration. Let's say for the particular iteration or particular release, right? So what actually happens is like the actual content that it is going to be displayed here in your web application is going to be fetched from something like your databases. So in those kind of things, mainly while validating those kind of data while you're that are fetched from databases, you will use explicit wait and wait for the particular element. Let's say table structure, table data structure, or something like that. And in the most of the cases, what happens is like we will use this explicit wait only. I'll show my project actually. If you see this, in almost every step, I have used this particular function called with timeout. Right. This is a wrapper method which is provided by a framework called Serenity. Let's try to explore this. So they are setting this timeout, right, to for particular seconds, and for every object which I am kind of doing here, or I have to click or clear something, or I have to send keys for whatever thing I'm doing. I'm waiting here, right? So I'm using this inside an if condition. So it is kind of almost you will be using for almost all the elements in your page, because we will not know for sure when the no such element exception is going to occur in our program, and we don't want that in our runtime. So we always go for this explicitly waiting thing. Uh, so for each and every step actually. Yeah, so to you find element, you do some operation before you find element. Check whether the element is loaded or not. It's kind of mandate actually, right? So for each and every step, you have to do this. It's a painful process. So only they are writing this wrapper methods. It's easy to call the method again and again and do some operations over it. So this particular explicit wait is available in, you can use that particular thing with a class called WebDriver wait. Let's let's try to get the same. So we have this class called WebDriver wait, and we are creating an object for that. So it is asking us to pass the driver instance itself in the constructor, and we'll say timeout duration is let's say 10 seconds. So now we had declared the explicit wait as object. So now what we have to do is like there is something called until method. We'll come to this until method why it is there shortly. And you can pass whatever function here. Generally, the default function provided by Selenium is like expected conditions dot. So you have all these options you can use to check for certain functionality of an element, whether alert is present, whether attribute contains. So we saw the what is an attribute, right? Every element in DOM will have certain attribute. So something related to attributes and something related to element selection. So element selection state to be like what element state you want that you can set at the time while explicitly waiting for that element to be clickable. So element will load in the DOM, but it might not be clickable. The clickable property might have been disabled by CSS or JavaScript. So it has to be clickable also. So frame to be available, we know iframes, right? So certain things are loaded in iframe. So if the frame to be available or not, invisibility of element, or we can even validate JS kind of things. We can even validate number of elements to be lesser than or more than based on certain locators. So we'll use this element, this locator, presence of element located, right? So it will just say whether the element is located in our DOM or not by explicitly waiting for the amount of duration which we ask to wait. So by locator, right? We'll say XPath itself. So now what we'll do, it will explicitly wait for the particular element, and if the particular element is not loaded within the particular time frame, then it will throw an error. I'll try to run this. I think the program execution is completed. Yes. So it has loaded obviously. So what we'll do, we'll try to capture this within the web element itself. So now we'll say link dot click. We'll try to run this again. Maybe we'll wait for a certain time. Okay, I think it's clickable link or not. Okay, it's not a clickable link itself. It's kind of a scrollable link. Maybe we'll try to. Maybe we'll try to explore this Google itself. Right? We'll find element and we'll send some text. Let's say Selenium itself. Let's try to click this link actually. So we have this XPath. We'll try to. We'll click this link and we'll wait for a certain time. We'll see what happens. Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, I think I didn't submit the form.
Karthik, sorry, I missed out. Well, what exactly here you want to do?
Oh, actually, we are trying to wait for some element explicitly by giving some time out, and we are just trying to click that element.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So now it's going there. Now it's so again, for example, if you wanted to validate something inside this particular website also, then we don't have to necessarily use thread.sleep here. Again, for example, if I wanted to validate if the particular web page loaded or not, let me take any element in this web page and let's assume that particular element is going to be loaded last. Usually this is the approach that is followed. People validate with this particular title, but generally I don't prefer going with that. You can obviously get the title, right? Title of any um, web page using this particular method called get title. So if you just say get title, it will return this title, right? Here, this website's title is Selenium HQ browser automation. So people also used to validate using this title also, but we may not for sure, right? This title might have no loaded properly, and this entire web page might have not loaded properly, right? So generally, what we prefer is like we take any element in the web page, but the element generally we prefer is kind of a very needed element in the particular web page, and that particular element should be loaded last. So we might know for sure, okay, if the last element itself is loaded, then we might know for sure the entire web page is loaded actually. Right? Again, we'll try to get this text and find this particular web element. So remove this thread.sleep and we'll say again wait dot until.
Karthik,
Yes.
with regarding the wait until, okay,
Uh-huh.
is it only specific to the Serenity or generally the web element, the wait you can use the web driver wait, still
Okay.
have that methods, right? Or it's only specific to
No,
the
no,
Selenium?
no. It is not Serenity one, Shiva. It is purely Selenium one.
No, you just mentioned before that, so
No, no, no. I just said it's a wrapper method available actually. So if you
okay,
go for this web without with time mode, it's available in the class called page object. This page object is inside this Serenity BDD dot package. So it's actually a wrapper method for waiting for particular element, which is given by this particular framework called Serenity.
okay,
But this until conditions, what we're explicitly doing here is available in Selenium itself.
okay, okay. Thank you.
So this Serenity BDT, can we? I mean, can we use it only in while developing BDT framework or anywhere else?
Yes, yes,
Any
yes. It is
data?
explicit. It is a explicit BDD framework actually.
Okay,
So
okay.
nowadays, and what Serenity offers is like it's becoming very, very popular actually nowadays.
Hmm.
What it actually gives is like it combines Selenium and this rest assured right into a single thing, and it will gives you an complete package for both UI and API testing actually.
Okay.
So you don't need separate tool or framework for API testing.
Mm-hmm.
So use the Serenity and you can do both. Maybe I'll try to show a small example. Um, So you can see here, right? The Serenity also has the Serenity REST class,
Mm-hmm.
so which is a wrapper method for REST assured actually, wrapper library for REST assured. So you
Okay.
can just give headers and a body. You can pass as a string or JSON, and you can just hit the endpoint, get the results, and you can validate also, right?
Okay.
And even it supports general Selenium kind of thing, waiting for certain element and clicking on that element. So it's kind of both. You can do two in one. So it's kind of popular, and it's a BDD framework, right? People kind of moving towards BDD nowadays now from test-driven development, because it's easy to reuse methods here, and it gives report is defaultly available. Since you are defining every step in this feature file, so now if you integrate with any reporting framework, it becomes very, very easy, because it will take the reporting step directly from the feature file itself.
Okay.
You don't have to go and search anywhere.
Right.
So yeah, so reporting becomes easy as well. So because of those reasons, and we don't automate the test cases itself directly, because it's a very, very painful process, right? What the mistake we did in my previous company was, there might be some regression test cases we might be automating. There was this one application called Blue Connect, actually. That is a healthcare application. If we were working, for example, if I wanted to validate something here, I just wanted to go and validate about method, about link and governance link here. I just wanted to do something, some operations over here, get some data and validate. So what happened? We write regression test cases for each and every thing. For about one case will be there. Inside about, if you go inside governance, if you go something will validate for each and everything. Some test cases will be there. Instead of that, instead of doing like that, what if there is a single flow, single scenario that you wanted to automate? Obviously, we are going to automate some web application only, not any static web pages. Right?
Yes.
So if we have this single flow, we'll be able to do multiple things. For example, in this particular feature file itself, we are logging in. We don't have to write a separate test cases to test the login functionality and all. So we are moving to certain page called journey page. We are filling its details. Again, filling some more details, and you are clicking on the next, and you're waiting for certain seconds, and you go to the next page, and what we did is, like, we combined this UI and API together for validation. For example, this is something where I create something called journey email in my application. Let me show it actually. This is the application currently we are working on. Okay. So there is something called journey emails. We'll just create a journey email, random something we'll create. So once this is created, what we do, we just go to this backend web application. We just hit an API call to the backend, and it will return some response, right? So we'll validate whether the everything which we have given at the time of creation of this journey email correctly or not through this API itself. And we fill some data here. This is a form for filling some data, right? And we'll fill some random data here. And we'll go to this next page. And what happens now? I have filled many things in this configure. I don't have to validate what we have filled some elsewhere. So what we do, after going to this particular style page, these details are automatically saved, right? Again, we hit a API call to the particular backend and validate all the details saved in this configure page are available in the database in the right columns or not. So like that, we combine this UI and API thing together to form a single feature file and test this. So ultimate goal of this is, like, not to validate each and every element here, validate something, this form here, this thing here, and the goal is not to validate each and everything through a regression test case. The goal is to validate the entire flow. I'm selecting some style here. I'm going to the review page. I'm just clicking the ready to send. So this is an entire flow which combines some 30-40 test cases actually. So if you cover it in a single flow, in a single feature file like this, so you are covering 30-40 test cases together actually.
So basically, what's per my understanding, Serenity is for both API and functional tests. It gives an
Yes. And creating it is also very easy. It provides certain standard libraries. For example, if I wanted to get some driver, we don't have to initialize the driver and all. You just have to go to this serenity.conf configuration file and just say WebDriver is equal to Chrome.
Okay.
Headless is equal to true. It will automatically initialize the Chrome driver and run in a headless mode actually. And if you want to get the driver instance also, that is also very easy. For example, I have this step definition. Sure. Okay. And this particular step definition has this particular methods which are coming from this steps class actually. This steps class, if you go, it extends this UI interaction steps. This UI interaction steps in turn extends this page object, which is from Serenity. So what if I wanted to get some driver instance? It's kind of very easy actually. For example, you have this get driver method, right? So get driver will get the driver instance used for this particular test, and we can, I mean, obviously get the URL whatever we want to do with the particular driver instance. Actually, same methods are available here. Right?
So we don't have to explicitly
yeah, we don't have to instantiate a driver or explicitly do anything of that sort. Everything is kind of defaultly available.
Okay. So I will try to implement in my Cucumber first.
Yeah, actually, if you implement this, it is kind of very useful. And creating it also is very easy actually. Just you have to create a Maven or a Gradle project. Here we have a Maven project, right? We have Maven project. We have this pom.xml. Give this dependencies here, right? I have just have to create this. I showed you, right? This particular serenity.conf file. This even in properties you can define, but we are not using this property actually currently. Either you can define in properties or you can declare in conf file also. This is a type safe method of doing that.
Okay.
So once you do that, I mean, obviously everything is easy. You have this SRC test and Java folder structure. So inside this resources, you have these feature files.
Yes.
So the feature file will obviously call the step definition, right? And you have this IntelliJ plugin also, where from the feature file you can directly navigate to particular step definitions as well. So if you install this, it will automatically scan for the step definition method, which contains this text. So I don't have to search for step definition methods explicitly. I can just use control and click over this to directly go to the step definition method itself.
Okay.
So it becomes very easy, right? And inside the step definitions, I'm calling the steps actually. There's something called steps, which are again given by this BDD. I mean, this particular framework, Serenity framework. So what the step, we don't write every steps inside our step definition itself. We write every steps inside the step class, and we just call that method from the step definition. So it's kind of one more wrapper layer to that. Let's say I'm going this. So this is available in the step class with every method annotated with this annotation called @step.
Okay.
So this
means what I understand, it is dependence. I mean, if the one method is dependent to another method, then the parent method should be this step.
So one method, yeah. So one method is kind of a, what to say, wrapper to another method, not a dependent. It's a wrapper. Wrapper means you use the particular class and write another class, and you write a wrapper over that. It's a wrapper is what you call the wrapper chocolate, because chocolate is wrapped under a cover, right? The actual content will be there in this class.
Okay.
Step definition and the step class. But what's a wrapper to the step class is step definition actually. Right?
Okay.
The step definition is a wrapper to the steps. Why it's a wrapper? Because we are calling the steps method. For example, this particular login method, login user method is called where? Is called here. Right? Login user method is called here. Right? So before calling this login method, we are getting this username, password, and those kind of things here only, not inside this in particular class and particular method itself. So the step definition is kind of wrapper to the steps class actually, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so to what is the hierarchy for this particular framework is like for each and every thing you have to create a I mean locator, right? Locator is the basis for everything. So locator is a kind of a first class you will do or you will write, and what next class you will write, you will write the step class. And what is a wrapper class you will write for this step? You will write the step definitions, and where you will call the step definition, you call the step definition from the feature file. This is the hierarchy, right?
Yes. Okay. Got it. So will you cover any session
Mhm.
to where we can set learn to set up this infrastructure?
Yes. We'll be doing these things. Yeah.
Okay.
So again, you can go and create a number of things like this. So what people do is like, see, I wanted to validate next element here. Again, I have to use this wait for, until expected conditions and those things and all. So what people do, people generally write a method here, method to call wait for this particular thing and all that. People generally don't use this statement again and again actually. So we create a explicit wait here. So what it will do, we'll just create a method. We'll just try to create a method here which returns a web element itself. So it will take some locator as a argument. So we'll just
Karthik, what is the pattern we are using here for finding XPath, this H3S pen?
it's nothing pattern and all. We are just we are just using this XPath because that is the way which is present in our particular page, right? For example.
Well, I think this is a dynamic XPath.
No, what do you mean by dynamic actually? It's a relative XPath. See, we have this particular Selenium WebDriver text inside this H3 inside this pan, right?
Sorry, relative XPath, not dynamic. The wrong word I used.
Okay, so how have we added H2 here? Matlab, can't we write H3 here?
No, it's H3 only. I was doing something right inside the other web pages actually. It's H3 only. We are given H3 only here, right? H3 span contains the Selenium WebDriver, right? So getting the point?
Yeah, right. Matlab, we won't write span, and if we just write H3, that is a tag name, so it would consider it, or otherwise we have to define the full path H3/span.
The text is not contained inside this H3. It is contained only inside this span actually.
Span. Okay.
Yeah. So the span has only text, right? H3 is kind of a reference parent element to just to find where the particular span is. We don't know, otherwise we'll not be knowing. Right? Span is very, very common. There is a particular use case for the span tag actually. Maybe you'll just find out by yourself. That's a very specific use case for the span tag actually.
Okay.
I suggest you to find it actually. It's kind of So what we are doing is like we are just creating a wrapper method here. So we don't have to wait call this wait method again and again. We can just create a wrapper method like this and pass this particular locator by locator and pass this WebDriver wait instance, and it will return a particular element if waiting for the particular time which we defined in the creation of the WebDriver wait class itself. Right. So we'll just define this by locator here.
Karthik, I have a doubt. This thread dot sleep is implicit wait or explicit wait?
It is not wait at all. It is we are just asking the thread to sleep. That's it. It's not any kind of wait mechanism at all. So see, thread is something which is related to Java. It's not a Selenium concept, right? We saw while we saw this thread and all. So every Java object or Java execution will be followed in something called thread. Right? Thread is a worker we saw. So what worker will carry a sequence of instruction to CPU to execute. So if a single worker does these things, we call it a single thread. If a multiple worker does these things parallelly, we call it a multi-threading array. It is kind of a single worker taking all these instructions and taking. So we are asking that worker itself to stop the execution, halt the execution when we say thread.sleep. So Java execution itself will be paused for the particular moment. It's not any kind of wait mechanism that we are explicit to Selenium. Selenium wait mechanisms are explicitly for the elements of our web page. Java is a very generic thing. It can wait for anything. It can stop execution for anything. Right.
Yeah, and it is not recommended to use thread dot sleep, right? I mean,
Yeah, it is mostly not recommended, but we might need in a real-time project for few scenarios. Generally, it is not recommended. General application, general use cases, it is not recommended actually.
Why?
Why in the sense why you have to halt the entire thread? Why see why this implicit explicit wait are given by Selenium when you have this thread or sleep? You should not halt the entire thread for doing some thing, right? So we have to have some mechanism where we have to have a custom implementation to wait for something, and halting entire Java execution is like kind of stopping the entire execution. It may be interrupted by anything. Java execution may be interrupted by anything. So we have to halt the entire thread. Some if entire instructions are kind of overloaded inside your compiler to execute, then if it runs out of memory, it will create Java out of memory error also sometimes. Okay. But we have a wrapper class like this, like wait mechanisms which are implemented by Selenium. So it has some functionalities where it is specifically applied to the particular DOM element or particular browser kind of things. So it will also have a mechanism to throw exception when a particular web thing element is not located within the particular time frame. We have more control over what we are doing within this kind of wrapper things instead of directly saying thread.class. See, if you see thread.sleep, it throws something called interrupted exception. Right? What's the interrupted exception? So whenever this particular see, I said you about worker, right? It executes some sequence set of instructions. Uh, it the instructions or a particular thing may be interrupted by anything. Right? We might not know. Uh, Anybody have studied this 8085, 8086 processors actually in the UG or something? It is a basic Intel processor. We all know, right? 8-bit and 8-bit processor actually.
Yeah, we have x86.
Yeah, we have studied, right? No, I mean about the 8086 processor. I'm saying actually.
Oh, 8086.
8086.
Okay.
Microprocessor. We know you have seen this kind of. Anybody who would have studied EC might have known this thing. I think.
Yeah,
Yes,
I have
yes.
used it.
Yeah, used it, right? So this is a very basic block. Right? This is the structure for this. This AD0 to AD14 or this AD16 or this data pins, right, where the data enters into the particular processor, and there is something called INTR. This is 18th pin, right? The INTR is interrupt. So any process that are happening in the processor can be interrupted by an interruption. So only we are throwing whenever we say thread, we are throwing interrupted exception because it may be interrupted. So we don't want our program to be interrupted. So for 8-bit processor itself, this we have having this interrupt exception. Imagine about the current 64-bit processors which are processing at 4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz clock. Right? Anything may happen to interrupt our Java program, we might not know. So it's not advisable to use this thread.sleep.
Okay, got it.
And can I add to that, Karthik?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. With respect to those two weights, right? Only thing is that we are making explicit weights are only that its weight, though we give the certain duration of the time, as soon as as soon as it finishes its task, it comes out of it. So that we'll be saving time on it. Okay. And implicit weight is we are forcing it to wait till certain time, no matter what, whether it finds or not. So which makes the processing slow, like the execution slow. And the thread is also the same thing. We are pushing it to do on the thread, like we are forcing it to wait for a certain duration. That's it. So that's the reason no one recommend you to do it. But as Karthik was saying, in certain duration, in certain conditions, we will be using it. But as a coding standards or the best practices, people not recommend that, and it doesn't look good. That's only the reason. But we can still use it. Hope that's correct, Karthik.
Yes, definitely sure.
So I have another input here, like we have synchronized methods. Java has the synchronizing method, which through which we can use, if we use thread.sleep or sleep for some time to make our execution slow, we can also use that, because synchronized method basically it's kind of parallel thread which uses uh, it's kind of parallel thread which runs parallelly with another thread.
Okay.
Every time, yeah. So actually, while trying to optimize our code, my approach was to slowing down the execution, because Selenium is very much fast. It's not that every time when it is clicking on the elements, it's rendering different areas. I mean, clicking on different areas of the page. Basically, when it comes very fast, usually if I show someone, anyone will say that this is very fast. So how can we make this execution slow? We don't have any options without thread.sleep. So is there any, way to do it so that we can make our execution little bit slow? I started in Google, but I did not find any proper answer. So I thought that maybe synchronized method can do, because it runs parallel.
No, sometimes it happens. Because sometimes what happens is like, for example, we submit some forms over internet, right? So once you click, even let's say Google is kind of defaultly enabling this Google search button, but
Yes.
let's say you're submitting this form, and immediately you click on this submit button or click this button. What happens is like this button might not be enabled at all. So there might be some logic in the front end where you click on this submit button once you have entered some text here, right? So for
Yeah.
JavaScript to detect that something happened over this particular form field, it will take some milliseconds, say 500, 600 milliseconds. Okay, then JavaScript will know, hey, I have this particular form is filled, or this particular field is filled. Then I have to click. Then I have to actually allow to click this particular submit button or Google search button.
Hmm.
So those kind of logics will be there. So if you directly go on doing like send keys and directly click on submit, it might throw an error. Many times we face that. Out of frustration, what we'll do, we'll use this thread dot sleep. Okay, have to as Sagar said, right, have to slow down the execution. We use thread dot sleep. Okay, now we are totally sure that kind of we are that particular button is enabled. But
Yeah.
again to you do this in a correct way, what we'll do is like, again we have to find this element. We have to just say is enabled or not. This is enabled method, right, in the find element. Then it's enabled, then if it's is enabled, we even this particular explicit wait has this thing called enable dot let's do it here. See, if you see this able to be clickable, what the description it says, an expectation for element is to be visible and enabled, right?
Yes. Yes.
So these kind of methods are also there. So the problem is like you have to do again and again if condition, if condition, if conditions to do almost all the operations in.
Right. Right.
So see, it's not like we don't use the thread or sleep at all. We might have used. Let's check actually.
So I did a little tweak. What I did, uh, I used before method annotation, and I used their thread dot sleep. So
Okay.
it will execute in before each and every method. It will pause down the. I mean, between two test cases, it will wait for some time so that the page gets properly rendered, loaded. I don't know this is a correct way or do it or not.
Actually, see, one thumb rule of automation, there are no right and wrong ways. There are the
Yeah.
ways which are working, which are not working actually.
Right. Right.
So, so nothing harm in trying those things, but it's always good to follow some general good programming practices.
Yes.
So here also we have used this thread dot sleep, and because we are using some mouse elements, right? We are clicking and releasing the particular mouse events, right?
Mhm.
Click and hold and releasing and all. So for to do particular things, it's kind of drag and drop actually. So we have to check if the particular element is drag and drop in some pane or not, something like that. So we didn't have to go and check the particular element available in the drop to pane or not. Again, it's a painful process again to add if condition. So so that's it. Yeah, right.
Drag and drop is one of the most difficult process.
Yes, of course. No, coordinates always varies, right? For drag and drop.
Yes.
And it varies with browser resolution and devices also.
Yes.
It's one of the irritating part. So nowadays what people are preferring is like going for API approaches, because once you hit an API, that particular thing is already available in your UI. For example, even in our application, there is something called journeys, where just clone this journey. Sure. And the particular blocks are available here actually. I have to drag and drop it here. Getting it right. Otherwise, this block is not available and we cannot create this journey. So what one method of doing is like you already have this created thing and just reuse this thing. Other thing is that we have something called let's say, yeah, choose a template is there, right? We have default templates that are available. So if you see this, this is an API called network tab, right? Let's say I want this particular template. I'm using this. This is the layout of the template, right? If I click use template class for the name, if I say okay, this is a name, then some API call is going, reduce template API call is going. So if you see this, okay. So if you see this, we are passing the name as a request payload. Right. In backend, what happens? Some API structure is already formed and returns that API structure actually for us. Right. This is the API structure. Right. This is the kind of response that we are getting. So we just have to create this API in our backend system. So it is already chose the template, right? So for any template of any combination, if we like, we have some kind of logic in our backend system like this. So you just have to call that method using an API call, right? Use template. Just this is a simple API call with the request payload of the template name, right? That's it. So in these kind of scenarios, if you're able to explore AI, explore these backend systems and do these kind of things, it's kind of very helpful actually for automation, also for our personal learning also. Right.
Karthik, can we use implicit wait instead of explicitly wait?
No, I mean the difference between the implicit and explicit wait is kind of implicit wait waits for every element in the DOM for implicitly for that particular time, right? So if you're trying to do some actions over a particular thing which is not available in the DOM, then it will throw an error actually. So we don't prefer implicit wait actually. Implicit wait is kind of there in each and every framework. We use that because we just wanted to meet some SLA and we just wanted to make sure within that particular time the element is not ordered, we had to throw the exception. Right? But for most of the case, we use explicit wait only to wait for a particular element and do some operation over it. Implicit wait is a very generic, right? We have to wait for certain element to do some operation over it, right? We might not know which element is that. We are using implicit wait. We have to select the element to click on. We have to select and find element to send keys. We have to find element to submit. Everything have to find element, right? For the finding element, we will have to make sure that element is present in the DOM through explicit wait only. So explicit wait only will be using most of the times, not implicit.
Okay. But we can use that.
Use what?
But we can use implicit wait as well. Matlab advisable is explicit wait.
No, implicit wait is cannot be used for so many conditions, right? You cannot just wait for the element to be clickable using implicit wait.
Okay.
So you just cannot wait for presence of element located through implicit wait. Implicit wait will just check whether particular element is loaded in DOM or not. Whatever element you are trying to find will be is loaded in DOM or not.
Okay.
Right? It doesn't give you any control over that, right? Any control over the element. So there are certain things which you can perform over explicit wait, which cannot be done through implicit wait.
Okay.
So in those kind of scenarios, you should use explicit wait only and not implicit wait.
Okay.
Fine. No, I think if you're still confused, you can clarify.
Actually, thing is like I would do myself. Then only I think it would get clear. Like without project knowledge, it won't be clear that much.
See, we are waiting for some condition here. We are just simply waiting here by giving some implicit wait driver dot manager dot timeouts. So it doesn't wait for, it doesn't apply any condition over the particular web element to be located, right? So we'll not know whether this element is clickable or not, whether this element is enabled or not, whether this element is still present or not. We'll not know without explicit wait.
Okay.
Implicit wait, see, this is a DOM, right? This is a DOM. Implicit wait will just see whether this particular element is loaded in the DOM or not. That's it. Okay. I think you can wrap the session with this. We'll continue tomorrow. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So anything else you want to discuss today?
Karthik, just one short question. Actually, one of the interviewer asked me, like, if that can be wrap up in a minute or so. Like, what is a return type of put in hash map?
Which put?
Hash map dot put we used to write na in hash map.
Okay.
So he mean to say like, what is a return type of that?
I think return type is that element itself. We'll just check.
That's what I told him, but he said directly
No,
no.
no, no. Let's just check.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, put is returning that value itself, right? See, key is k,
Yeah.
value is v. It is returning that value itself, right? It is a return type, so it returns
Return
the
type.
value.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's I told him only.
Then you say you are wrong.
Then he said that you are wrong.
You say him again. You are wrong. Please go
Yeah.
on verify.
In fact, in one of the question, I argued him like, no, I am right. Matlab first of all, he asked me like, what is the difference between before test and before method? I clearly told him like, before methods runs before each test at the rate test method, and before test runs before first test method only. On it runs only once. He then said, this is not a right answer. मैंने कहा this is the only right answer. When I told him like, you tell me the right answer then. तो गूगल कर लेना. मतलब मेरे को तो यही पता है. This is exactly what मैंने इसके बाद गूगल भी किया. मतलब I'm not wrong somewhere.
You told him or what?
मतलब मैंने उनको ये बोला कि this is the only thing that I know and मुझे लगता है यही correct है. This is the thing. This is right. उन्होंने बोला कि नहीं ये right तो नहीं है. तो मैंने कहा आप बताओ कि what might be the right answer then. कह रहा गूगल कर लेना.
No, if you are actually sure about that, you can ask him to directly. Okay, let's open Google and verify.
हाँ वो नहीं मैंने अब बोला.
See, because if we do that and if we don't do that, if he has fixed that mind to reject us, then obviously at least we'll be satisfied that we have cornered him. We have countered him.
Yeah, exactly. पर 2 बार ऐसा हो गया था. मतलब मेरी बहस ही हो गई थी इंटरव्यूअर से. मतलब
One other thing, right, Achal, if you really face such kind of an issue, if you're sure, as Karthik was saying also, if you're sure with it, either you can show in the Google, or if someone reject you for any of the reason, okay, just reply them back, okay, right? And you also have entitled to ask what your feedback. In India, we don't ask feedbacks, okay?
exactly.
Right? We are intended to ask what is our feedback, and this is the question. If you feel that you're right, that you answered 6 questions which he asked, okay, just reply them back that this is the questions he asked, the 10 questions. I made a note of it, and I answered 6 out of it, and why I've been rejected. Can you please come on, give me feedback, and who is right or wrong?
Right.
If we don't start such things, they will make us to used to the
Exactly.
used to the system, whatever it is. Okay.
Exactly.
So that's what our seniors in the testing community is saying it. I'm trying to pass you. If there is no mistake from your side, please go ahead and politely ask it. What is my mistake and why you rejected me? Okay. You are entitled to that. So that's only friendly suggestion. So keep that in mind.
So it's not anything that we have to go and get the job from the same company. At least we'll get double confidence over it. Right? So it will be helpful in that way. And what's that company name? If you say might be.
Actually, it was Paytm, and I got clear.
Paytm, okay.
I got clear for that round as well. Second round get also cleared, but मुझे लग नहीं रहा था कि मेरा first round would get clear क्योंकि मतलब that was totally a like a hard communication between me and interviewers. मुझे लगा ये तो मुझे reject कर ही देगा अभी.
Okay. So Paytm is still doing this kind of things. Actually.
Yeah, right. मतलब इससे पहले भी 3 months back मैंने Paytm में try किया था. मतलब I don't like interviewers there at all. मतलब they are very egoistic. Plus मतलब they think that only they knows the thing and बाकी को कुछ नहीं आता. अब they can ask मतलब किसी तरीके का भी पूछ सकते हैं, कुछ भी reply कर सकते हैं. मतलब मुझे उनका नहीं समझ में आता Paytm का. मतलब बहुत ही अजीब ही है वहाँ के interviewers.
No, it happens with the bad work culture actually.
Yeah, maybe
I
right.
cannot help it. So okay, fine. So we all try to avoid Paytm then.
हाँ बस दे दिया इंटरव्यू. मतलब obviously I would avoid Paytm only. There's a culture भी अच्छा नहीं है Paytm का.
Actually, one quick fact actually, recently this Paytm founder, right, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, he bought this home for some 85 crores. In Delhi, I think.
Okay.
Fun fact.
Someone took so much brokerage. That's why he got angry.
Problem with Paytm kind of thing is like it's a very dynamic environment, right? And people tend to hire wrong people because it's a B2C, right? There are two business models: so B2B customers, business to business, and B2C, business to consumers directly. There are
And
very few companies which actually do that B2C very effectively. So good company is actually Uber.
Yeah, Uber is a good organization.
Actually, Uber is one of the very cool work environments to work. But problem with the Uber is also like it's recently laid off like many employees.
Yeah, due
You
to
don't
COVID
know.
and all, right?
Yeah.
And this Paytm interview, this is like more of manual and less of automation. In the first round, what question he asked me, how to validate like valid JSON parenthesis when. This is a question I know the answer. मतलब मैंने पूरा कर दिया, हो गया. एक और question उन्होंने पूछा, that was a very hard program, but that was a more of manual interview, and he was asking me more of automation questions. I don't know why. मतलब
So
कुछ
what was the
भी
question?
the process
What
is.
was the question? What was the question? JSON
So,
parameters.
Jason, once Karthik has also asked us to like study the JSON validation one.
No, what was the question? JSON parameters.
JSON, how? मतलब there was a 3 JSON parentheses, like validate those JSON parentheses to any data structure.
Valid parenthesis question.
Right.
You put it in a stack and get from stack.
Yeah, exactly. I have read it twice, so I know the answer.
Yeah.
Well, actually, while I work with the browser stack, there are scenarios where you need to read the parameters from JSON files. Probably also part of interview question.
Nowadays, people use many things to store in JSON because it's very convenient actually.
Fast. It is very fast.
Yeah, fast and convenient as well. Instead of storing in these Excel kind of things. And people don't need test data that much actually. Primitive systems only need kind of this test data storing in Excel and all. People just store this JSON directly in your project and use this. There are many frameworks to generate this fake value, right? Faker framework. Even in Java, you have very good faker framework actually.
Yeah.
If you go to this GitHub repo, you will find this Java faker, right? It's very easy to use, and people generate test data through these kind of things only nowadays. Using of this Excel sheet or those kind of things to generate test data is kind of becoming less nowadays actually. Even we use this Java faker in our project.
Could you repeat that? What is the use of this?
No, for example, I wanted to fill this form, right? I showed my web application to fill this form. Why have to go each and every time to read the data from Excel, store there, and fill this form and all, right? Sender name and choosing this.
Yeah.
I can directly how to say use this faker kind of thing to generate many things actually. Subject, pre-header, campaign name, sender name, random sender name. Get it right? I don't have to store everything in
Excel sheet.
To matter of fact, we don't use Excel sheet at all in our automation framework. We don't read data from anywhere. We generate data and put and validate directly.
Well, if I want to use, if I want to run, suppose 1600, I have 1600 tests, test cases I need to run, and in which I need to, in every regression suite, I will select the test cases which I need to execute for regression.
Okay.
So what will be the design pattern of? Should I keep it in JSON file or should I keep it?
No, it depends upon what kind of application type you are using. Right? It's kind of heavily data dependent application. Then probably you might need some Excel sheet, or even JSON file is not that much suitable for those kind of heavy data intensive application.
No. Actually, I want to say that the test cases, there are 1600 test cases, and it is just a normal functionality. There is nothing to heavily loaded data or nothing related to it. So I am planning to design. So we have an Excel sheet where all the test cases, 1600 test cases are there, and we have ID of the teacher test.
Okay.
So I need to automate each and every test. Okay.
Okay.
And the requirement is come to us like you have to create your test methods with the ID, which will map the functionality.
Okay.
Okay. So how can we do it
No,
without?
is this really a requirement from your project, or is
Yes.
you are entitled to modify those things actually?
This is a requirement. I mean, management
See,
is
you can, if possible, if you can try to convince them actually. See, if you don't have any data intensive task, then why you have to need to store the test case alone in an Excel sheet actually? Yes, need Cucumber kind of framework like this. We don't store any test cases also in an Excel actually. What we do, we just annotate the particular Cucumber feature file actually, like this, right? uh, See, it's journey emails, right? We annotate journey emails and follow with 2 3 annotations with which is more specific to the particular test, right?
yeah.
This is a journey email one. So if I wanted to run this particular, I can run as a maven command. See, if I wanted to run the entire journey email suite, I can use that journey emails tag. If I want to run any one particular test case, I can use that JE one. So it becomes very simple, right? Why have to kind of map to a particular test case in an Excel sheet and run this? Not at all necessary.
I don't know. Let's do one thing, Karthik. So I will uh, sit with you in offline, so that in
Okay.
separate time, so that we can discuss how can we optimize, because this is a very critical functionality, critical thing they have given as a requirement, which is of
Okay.
really I don't find which is good actually. Still, we
No,
need to
sometimes these clients, right, they don't know what they will be like. Oh my god, if there's no Excel sheet to drive the data, then my entire application might fail. They
yeah,
see they are in kind of wrong assumption. They don't know what's the technical thing inbuilt there. They will think like, okay, people are using Excel sheet, we should also use Excel sheet.
yeah,
People doesn't know actually, and these kind of our companies will charge the customers based on these kind of magic terms, right? They're
yeah,
driving everything from Excel sheet. We have 600 test cases. We have and to show them proper reports as well. See, these are test cases. Excel is very easy to share, right? You cannot share this
yeah.
JSON file to them. What the heck is this? They will
Right,
ask.
right.
So
Yeah,
it's Excel sheet is kind of very easy. These are the test cases we are running, and these are the test data we are using. So easy to share them. So maybe for those kind of things they might use, but we'll discuss. We'll discuss this.
yeah. I will show you what I want to do, and they asked me to do.
Okay.
So can you manage one time so that I can show?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Probably in today evening we can connect if you're free.
Sure, sure. We'll connect today evening. Okay, yeah. All right.
Okay. So can we wrap up?